All right, so today we're going to take a deep dive into something pretty cool happening over in Kenya. It's
Right.
called the Problem Solvers League,
Okay.
PSL for short. And, we talk a lot about different educational models and systems on this show.
Right.
And I thought this would be a really fascinating one to take a closer look at today, especially given your background in curriculum development.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really interesting to see how they are tackling some of the challenges in education, particularly when it comes to math.
Yeah, I mean, it's a global issue, right? This idea that math is important. But for a lot of students, it's a huge hurdle to overcome.
Yeah, especially with the shift that we're seeing globally towards more competency-based education systems.
Right,
And in Kenya, they have the CBC competency-based curriculum,
right,
and they really emphasize, practical skills and problem solving.
right.
But even with that focus, there's still this kind of disconnect when it comes to math.
Well, especially because math is so, it's considered so vital. Like the material we looked at called it a survival skill.
Right, yeah.
But then on the other hand, there's this conversation happening about potentially making math optional at the senior secondary level.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting, right? It's like it's a survival skill, but then we're also considering making it optional.
Right. It's like, which one is it?
Exactly.
So that's kind of the backdrop for this deep dive into the Problem Solvers League, which is trying to bridge that gap.
Yeah, trying to make it less of a chore and more of something that's actually engaging and useful in their lives.
Right. So their core idea, and this is really kind of the radical thing, is that every Kenyan child in grades 6 through 9 should be learning math, not just to pass exams,
Right.
but as a tool for life.
Yeah, exactly. And that's such a fundamental shift, isn't it?
It is. It is.
Yeah.
So let's get into the specifics here, because saying real-world math is one thing,
Mm-hmm.
but what does that actually look like in practice?
Yeah. So what they're doing with PSL is they're creating these context-rich assessments.
Okay.
So instead of just giving kids abstract equations to
Right.
solve,
Mhm.
they're framing these problems within real-world situations.
Oh, okay. I like this.
So you can imagine students maybe calculating how much water their household uses,
Wow.
or developing a budget for a community solar grid,
That's a good one.
or even looking at price fluctuations for common food items.
That's interesting. Yeah, so it's stuff that they encounter every day. It's not
Exactly.
just like X plus Y equals.
Yeah, and it's making
Yeah.
you think about math in a different way.
Yes.
It's not just memorizing formulas.
Right.
It's actually applying those concepts
Mhm.
to situations they might actually encounter in their lives.
The material actually referred to this as project-based thinking.
Yes.
And even called it CBC in action.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really putting that competency-based curriculum into practice.
It's interesting, too, that it's not just individuals working on these problems.
Right.
It's like learners, teachers, and even whole schools are engaging in this on a national level.
Yeah, it's like a national league.
It is a national league.
Yeah, and there's that element of friendly competition,
Right.
but also collaboration.
Yeah. And, I think competition can be a really good motivator sometimes,
Absolutely.
especially when it's done in a healthy way.
Yeah, and the material highlighted some key things that make PSL different from traditional math education.
Okay, so what makes it so unique?
So first of all, the assessments themselves are designed by top Kenyan math educators.
Okay.
So, they're making sure that it's high quality and aligned with the curriculum.
Rigorous.
Exactly.
Right.
And secondly, the challenges are specifically aligned with the learning outcomes of the CBC.
So it's not like an extra thing on top of what they're already doing.
No, it's integrated.
It's part of it.
Exactly.
That's good.
And the third thing is that the feedback goes beyond just scores.
Oh.
Yeah, so students and schools get reports that show their growth in areas like critical thinking, creativity, digital literacy, and even self-efficacy.
Self-efficacy.
Yeah,
I like that. So it's about, can they actually believe in themselves to solve these problems?
right. It's not just about getting the right answer.
Right.
It's about the process and the skills that they're developing along the way.
That's great. Okay, what's the fourth thing?
The fourth one is the membership model.
Okay.
So PSL isn't just a one-time competition.
Mhm.
They offer continuous access to tools, resources, contests, teacher training, and a community network.
So it's a whole ecosystem.
It is.
It's not just like you do this one competition and you're done.
Right. It's about fostering ongoing engagement with problem solving.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's so important because, you can't just teach kids something once and expect them to remember it.
Exactly.
You have to give them opportunities to practice and apply what they've learned.
And PSL is doing that.
It is. And it's interesting, too, that they're not just focusing on one type of school or one area of the country.
Right.
They're working with public and private schools in both urban and rural areas. And they even have ambitions to expand internationally.
Yeah, they really see this as a global need.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. So why does all of this matter?
Well, the material pointed to this interesting statistic.
Okay.
They said that 65% of CBC learners are expected to enter STEM pathways.
Wow, 65%.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's huge.
And so PSL is really trying to make sure that those students have a solid mathematical foundation.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. You can't really do science, technology, engineering, or math without having, a good grasp of the fundamentals.
Exactly. And they also talked about the issue of gender representation in STEM.
Right.
And how PSL is trying to create more opportunities for girls to participate and excel in these fields.
Yeah, I mean, that's so important because traditionally those fields have been very male-dominated.
Yes.
And we need to change that. We need more diversity in STEM.
And PSL is doing that by creating gender-balanced teams, providing mentorship, and just making it more visible for girls to see themselves as problem solvers.
Right. And it's not just about getting more girls into STEM. It's about creating a more inclusive environment for everyone.
Absolutely.
And the material also highlighted how PSL connects to the needs of employers.
Yes.
Because businesses are looking for graduates who can think critically, analyze information, make decisions.
Right. It's not just about memorizing facts anymore.
No, it's about being able to apply those facts to real-world situations.
Exactly.
And PSL is giving students those opportunities to develop those skills.
And that's why PSL is so important. It's preparing the next generation of problem solvers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It is. So tell me a little bit more about Kurasa.
Okay, so Kurasa is the organization behind PSL.
Okay.
And their vision is to build a league of thinkers, innovators, and future leaders.
A league.
A league. It's not just about math. It's about a mindset.
Yeah, I love that. And the material kind of ended with this call to action.
It did.
It was encouraging teachers, school leaders, parents, policymakers to get involved. And they even gave some specific ways to do that, like dialing a number.
Star 483, 117 pound.
Or visiting their website, which is piosl.mykurasa.com.
Yes.
And they also talked about some upcoming events like teacher training sessions and expos.
Yeah, they're really trying to build a community around this.
They are. They are. And, I thought it was really interesting how they framed the goal. They said they want to transform math from a monster into a mission.
I like that.
And I think that's so key, right? Because for so many students, math is this scary thing that they dread. But if we can change their perception of it, if we can make it feel like a mission, like something exciting and challenging, then maybe they'll actually enjoy learning it.
Exactly. And that's what PSL is trying to do.
It is. It is. And so ultimately their aim is to build Kenya's next generation one question at a time.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really powerful way to put it. Because it's not about, cramming information into their heads. It's about helping them develop the skills they need to think critically and solve problems.
Exactly.
So to wrap up our deep dive today, the Problem Solvers League is a really innovative approach to math education. And it's deeply embedded in the new CBC in Kenya.
Yeah, and it's really exciting to see how they're focusing on real-world applications and critical thinking skills.
Absolutely. And, it's not just about math. It's about preparing students for the future.
Right. It's about giving them the tools they need to succeed in whatever they choose to do.
And so I'm curious from your perspective, thinking about your own background in education.
Yeah.
How do you think similar initiatives could be used in other subjects or even in other parts of the world?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's so much potential here to take this kind of approach and apply it to other areas of learning.
Yeah. I mean, what if we could make history or science as engaging as PSL is making math?
Right. Or what if we could create these kinds of collaborative problem-solving opportunities in other contexts?
Yeah, I think the possibilities are really endless.
They are. And I think the key takeaway here is that we need to be thinking about how to make learning more relevant, more engaging, and ultimately more effective for all students.
And that's what PSL is doing.
It is. It's a great example of what's possible when we start thinking outside the box.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive today.
It was my pleasure.
And to all of you listening, thank you for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye.